there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about linguistic human rights, or LHRs, because there's a feeling that in many contexts, people are not free to use their own language, and that may be disadvantageous to them. So in multilingual contexts, linguistic human rights means the right to use one's own language in education, in interacting with official organizations, to receive health advice and healthcare, and so on. This means, for example, if you want your child to be educated in Bahasa Sunda in primary school, is it possible? This is not learning Bahasa Sunda, but being educated through the medium of Bahasa Sunda. I think it's not possible, as far as I know. If you want to go to kantor kecamatan to organize some document or something like that, is it possible to use Bahasa Daerah? Can you fill in the form in Bahasa Daerah? Almost certainly not. It's almost certainly Bahasa Indonesia. If you want health advice, for example, the government is telling us a lot about corona. What language is being used to communicate this advice to the public? I may be wrong, but as far as I can see so far, it's in English, and often English mixed, it's in Bahasa Indonesia, but often mixed with English terms. This is something that I wrote about recently in Compass. So in other words, the advice, the message that the government wants to give to people may not be reaching them. If they're not terribly well educated, if they're not confident using Bahasa Indonesia, if they don't know what all these English terms mean, then that information is not reaching them. And in that case, if the information is not reaching them, maybe we shouldn't be surprised if people are not sticking to the protocol kesehatan. Excuse me. Healthcare. If you go to hospital and meet a doctor and you want to discuss something with that doctor, can you do it in Bahasa Daerah? Will the doctor give you advice in Bahasa Daerah or in Bahasa Indonesia? If you have to use Bahasa Indonesia, not everybody will be equally confident in that. Not everybody will feel free to communicate their problems to the doctor in Bahasa Daerah. So linguistic human rights refers to this. To what extent is somebody free to use their language in all contexts, so that they're not inhibited, they're not disadvantaged, they feel that they can communicate easily, and that the information they receive can be received easily. A few years ago, in 2017, a meeting was organized in Salzburg in Austria to discuss this issue. And I was fortunate to be invited to participate in this meeting. And at the meeting, we designed a statement, quite a long statement, which says, millions of people across the globe, across the world, are denied the right to maintain, enjoy, and develop their languages of identity and community. This is an injustice, and it needs to be corrected in language policies that support multilingual societies and individuals. We call for policies that value and uphold multilingualism and language rights. So it's a very strong statement. I'm not sure that any governments are listening to us, but at least we made the statement. And last year, November last year, UNESCO organized a conference in Bangkok, and there were representatives from several governments in Southeast Asia, and other parts of Asia there as well. And the government representatives, so this is not the ordinary conference participants, but the government representatives, including several ministers of education, drew up a statement which said in summary, we declare our commitment to the realization of inclusive and equitable quality education in relation to the language needs of all learners. In other words, these ministers of education recognize that the language of learners needs to be taken care of, needs to be focused on if we want education to be inclusive and equitable. If it's not, then education will not be inclusive. Some people will be excluded, especially language minorities. And they made 5 suggestions about ways of doing this. To think about the language of instruction, the medium of instruction, to invest money in developing high quality multilingual education, to develop policies, strategies and guidelines for countries which don't yet have policies on multilingual education, to diversify the teacher workforce. That means using teachers, developing teachers who are able to teach through Bahasa Daerah or Bahasa Ibu. And then the final one is about statistics, gathering data disaggregated by home or first language. Usually education statistics are presented in terms of male-female. How many boys go to school, how many girls go to school? Or sometimes in socioeconomic background, children from poor homes, children from rich homes. And this suggestion is that statistics should also be analysed in terms of the language that children bring from home and the language that's being used in school. So that's more or less what I want to say. I've tried to suggest that we need to think carefully about how we define multilingualism. We need to think about how multilingual some countries are, and it looks as though Indonesia is one of the most, or even the most, multilingual countries in the world. We need to think about policy, language policy, and the extent to which policy is being implemented or not, and why not. And we need to think about the implications for the human rights of service users, children, and so on.